This is the Bush Whisperer coming to you from the very special and very beautiful Penguin Sanctuary, Boulders Beach, Cape Agulhas, Cape Town. So, what can I say today that's on my mind? Thinking about rats, the spirit of the rat. So we're going to go full shamanic here. We're going to contemplate the rat for a moment. What is the rat? People don't like rats. They speak about rats as being disease carriers. And that is rather true, because they pretty much eat whatever they get hold of. And they have been known to live in sewers, where we poo, where all our filth goes. That's the kingdom of the rats. So it is for this reason that people are afraid of rats, of the dirt and the filth and the diseases that they carry. And we do know that there was a particularly potent disease that they brought to people off the ships in Europe a long time ago. Caused a lot of people to die from the pneumonic plague. Apparently caused by rats. And it stands to reason. But from a shamanic perspective, what does a rat represent? And in order to understand this, one needs to look at the rat, the creature, very closely. Firstly, they're highly competitive creatures. That's something to understand. And apart from being highly competitive, they're very brave. And apart from being brave, they are supremely intelligent. Yeah, people don't realize how clever little rats are. They are very thoughtful little beings. And mice are also fairly intelligent, which is why people use mice for experiments. But the rat holds a deeper intelligence. And the rats are also considered from an archetypal perspective. We need to consider the spirit of the elephant in order to understand the spirit of the rat. For the elephant's been said to be afraid of mice. And mice and rats come from the same species, shall we say, very similar. And the rat is considered in India to be the mount upon which Ganesha, the spirit of the elephant, rides. So when we contemplate the rat, we need to understand it in terms of what Ganesha represents. Now, we've explained that Ganesha represents the spirit of revelation of intelligence, which is the will, that removes limitations, that sweeps aside ignorance, a highly attuned intellectual state, shall we say, that liberates the will, empowers the consciousness field with the ability to change and transmute things through the transmutation of ignorance into wisdom and knowledge. And Ganesha, the elephant, also represents, on some level, that which Thoth represents as the scribe of heavens. And in the Vedic stories, Ganesha, the spirit of the elephant, is the scribe of the heavens. So what does that say about the rat? If that archetypal state of consciousness, which is a living being, and I want us to realize when we're speaking about archetypes, we aren't speaking about dead things that are just symbolic. We're speaking about living, intelligent forces that breathe much the way that we breathe. Living forces of pure intelligence. So, the spirit of Ganesha rides the spirit of the rat. So rat is ingenuity. So when one is connecting with the guide, and the guide comes in the form of a rat, this is one's own ingenuity. There's a creativity as well that comes with the spirit of the rat. For that spirit of intelligence is very creative and very clever and very cunning. There's a certain kinship between the intelligence of the rat and the intelligence of the fox, you could say. For the rats are very, very, very much able to adapt. They're highly adaptable beings. And so, in order to be able to carry this great spirit of the formative intelligence that sweeps aside ignorance and with it all limitations that ignorance implies. The creative, ingenious, and witty rat is the carrier or the transportation vehicle for such intelligence. What this means is that when one is being creative and one is using one's genius to be improvising something new, one is bringing about the spirit of wisdom into one's consciousness. That's why the spirit of the rat and the spirit of the elephant work together and are to be considered as partners, and that the spirit of ingenuity and creativity and that cunning intelligence that's able to take things and shape them into new things that are useful is an expression of the divine wisdom that sweeps aside ignorance, which is the elephant. So there's a way of understanding the spirit of the rat, what it represents on the deeper planes of consciousness from a shamanic perspective. For the shaman, work deeply with the guides, and the spirit of the rat is fundamental. In order to attain to the spirit of the elephant that sweeps aside ignorance, one can find one's way there by finding the mount, or shall we say, the mode of intelligence used by that high frequency of intelligence. For the universe can be thought of as grades of intelligence, the whole universe. And every grade of intelligence is intelligent and alive and breathing and living. And so we can start to get an understanding of what the guides represent when we look at these two guides and put them into perspective with each other. So when one is feeling stuck in a situation where one feels one's unable to figure out the way out of a situation, and it's not a situation that one would sweep aside and just dissolve with the power of dissolution of ignorance. The power of the elephant can be quite a powerful side-sweeping power that will remove everything. So in this way we can consider very deeply. The spirit of the rat is thus able to cleverly figure a way out of a situation without disrupting things too much, where the power of the elephant is a very disruptive power. It's a very powerful force that dissolves things to reform them. The power of the rat is more clever, more cunning, more careful, more subtle in the way that it navigates. It's more of a navigator. It navigates through situations carefully, cleverly. And the answers are always there to be found by the rat. For the rat's cunning is the rat's power. In the same way that the elephant's power is the ability to sweep away all ignorance, the rat can work with ignorance, and without sweeping aside all ignorance, can find small keys in a very easy and fairly fast way. The rat is quite a quick little animal. The wit of the rat is very quick. The rat also represents humor to a certain element, because humor moves with the rat. The rat can be very funny. So rats are to be considered as a sacred aspect of the consciousness. Think about that next time you're complaining about how dirty and filthy rats are. I understand we can't have them in our homes. We do need to have hygiene, and rats do not represent hygiene. But one needs to have empathy and love in the heart for these little creatures. For when one recognizes that these little creatures are manifestations of that great principle of intelligence, which is a living force, one starts to notice the interconnectedness of all things. And rats are able to see the little connections between things, being able to scrying the connections between things. So rats can also improve one's ability to scry, one's ability to remote view. Rats are quite clever in this way. We're not speaking about the power of the eagle here, but we are speaking about a clever use of a small power. That's what the rat represents. Rather than wielding the great powers, the rat wields the small powers, but it wields them in such a clever way that it can attain to very much. So efficiency is also a big part of how the rat moves, because rats are very efficient. So there's a small little shamanic consideration of the spirit of the rat. I hope you have an absolutely gorgeous day. And I'll be leaving you from this beautiful place. Cape Agulhas, Simonstown. Om Shanti.